Another review of Inferno from the DWRG Doctor Who Ratings Guide. This is from Will Berridge on the 26th of the 2nd, 2003. Fact 1. This story is, in my own oh-so-subjective view, the best story of the Pertwee era by a distance. Fact 2. I don't like the Pertwee era very much. It's full of bland, incidental characters. The entire guest casts of Planet of the Daleks and Frontier in Space do spring to mind. Especially caricatured civil servants, Brown Rose, Chin, Walker, and tedious moralizing. The mutants and colony in space are particular offenders, true. Then there's annoying CSO, just about every story, appalling monster design, they should have given up on dinosaurs after the Silurians, and generic plot lines. Yes, I do have it in for Planet of the Daleks. There's also one truly awful companion for the middle 3 seasons. Yes, this judgment is entirely based on Jo Grant's Scream. Most of her scenes with King Peladon in The Curse of Peladon. An inventive dialogue didn't really appear till the Tom Baker era in any great abundance. When I want to compare something favourably, I generally refer to a Pertwee era story. Phew, for someone who abhors ranting, I took great pleasure in doing that. Fortunately, Inferno doesn't suffer from any of these afflictions, with the obvious exception of the odd bit of CSO here and there. And the anti-CSO part of my tirade was completely spurious and put there to make the list more impressive anyway. I never used to notice when I was little read about 13 or less. Starting on a minor point, this story is unique in the Doctor Who canon as being the only story in which a civil servant is favourably portrayed. In that Sir Keith Gold isn't completely pompous and self-interested, even in the fascist universe, assuming his death in this parallel world was brought about for similar reasons to his near-death in the real one. Unfortunately, Stallman still takes the mickey out of him with all his canteen remarks, and he seems to have the potential of getting things done of your average civil servant. Unless I can have conclusive proof of an emergency situation. Of the rest of the guest cast, which isn't too large considering there are 2 versions of almost everyone, only Petra Williams is a bit bland, and even she has the odd good moment, standing up to the brigade leader. Stallman, German for Stalin, comes across well as cantankerous old git, and is also perfectly adequate as a Bond villain with an extra N on his name. Why does this happen? Why? In the nasty universe, the cantankerous git version provides much opportunity for verbal sparring with Johnny P. Sutton. Johnny P. Sutton does have the odd, fast-forwardable moment with Petra. Perhaps I could borrow you for a while, but redeems himself by losing his temper with fascism in the other world. The toy soldiers moment of the silly mockery of their salute is great. It's been suggested by many reviewers, and is probably true, that this story could have functioned perfectly adequately as a 4-parter minus focusing only on one dimension. Hopefully they didn't mean to imply it should have been, as this would just be economy for its own sake and deprive us of what is not a 4-episode piece of padding, but a marvellous story in its own rights. And the great thing about an alternative version of the Earth is that you can do whatever you want with it, including blowing it to bits. After all those years of imminent worldwide devastation being inexplicably averted by a mildly philanthropic space traveller in a blue box, it finally happens. Well, sort of. But the characters of Greg, Petra, and to some extent Liz are still as sympathetic as their equivalents in our dimension to show there is some good in a world about to disappear in a holocaust, and there's some terribly good footage of eruptions, lava flowing, and so on. Eps 3-6 are also a stunning indictment on the character of the Brigadier. It is clearly implied that the characters of the parallel universe are the same individuals in different circumstances. For instance, the fascist Liz studied science like our Liz, but went into the army because it's the done thing for up-and-coming individuals in a fascist regime. This is quite worrying for the Brig, as even when it's clear the world about to erupt in an all-consuming conflagration, his alter ego doesn't display a single redeeming feature. Instead, he keeps on bullying people, shouting orders, and even descends into a sickening chasm of despair and self-pity, which shows how much of a paper tiger he really is. This is particularly noticeable in his delivery of the line, "We'll all be roasted alive." This last trait would probably makes him the most believable villain of the Pertwee era, if it wasn't the fact we know there couldn't be possibly much of a link between him and the pompous but thoroughly harmless buffoon that is our real Brigadier. They do both use the line, "I don't like your tone," on Liz Shaw, however, which shows how much they both like being in authority. He's also stunningly acted, Nick Courtney effortlessly transforming his character into a vicious Nazi with some very fitting dialogue. "But I don't exist in your world. Then you won't feel the bullets when we shoot you." Benton is similarly unrecognisable from his usual curmudgeonly self, saying, "Stop asking stupid questions, and your problem is you talk too much. In that way you know you want to hate him." Many people seem to think this story's main detracting feature is the Prime Wars, and I'm not sure why. They weren't too difficult to realise with lots of hair and green face paint, but there are a couple of annoying shots of Starman's mutated corpse in the last episode where his unpainted neck is visible. The actors give them a great deal of life, moreover, with suitably feral growls and movements. It's arguable that they're superfluous to the plot, but episodes 5 and 6 especially are made all the more tense for the fear on a monstrous hand punching its way through a window. It's such a pity only Stallman gets transformed in the sadly anticlimactic, but saying a few interesting things about free will last episode. In his solo effort to tear everybody in the central control apart, he goes out with more of a whimper than a bang, breaking one chair before getting fire extinguished. What else? There isn't a single bad cliffhanger, and the endings to episode 5, notably 4, are superb. I've no idea where the green slime could have come from, and one oblique reference to Krakatoa doesn't help that much, but seeing as science is something I've always found confusing, when something that blatantly and inexplicably contradicts it come along, I'm not too perturbed. If you want to watch one story to delude yourself the Pertwee era wasn't retro after all, this is it.